Folks, this is the True American Podcast. I am your host. I have been looking forward to this interview for the longest time. And as I was saying to my brother before we officially started the recording, I'm probably going to get lynched for doing it, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to do it. One is that I have a very personal connection with this brother. Two, I have two dear friends who are police officers. And just to say that the police officer's job is not an easy one is a gross understatement. I think people don't really fully appreciate what these guys go through on a daily basis. I'm in a men's group, and we have two law enforcement officers there in that group, and man, I'm just amazed that anybody would want to do the job, to be honest with you. Honestly, I'm not amazed to do the job. But also I'm concerned about the way police officers are being demonized in this country. I don't like that at all. And if there's anybody who's been demonized for doing his job as a police officer, as a person who pledged to protect the community, is this brother right here, Sergeant John Mattingly, the author of 12 Seconds in the Dark. Some of you may or may not recognize his name, but he was one of the three officers who was involved in the whole Breonna Taylor tragedy. Brother, thank you for being with me today.
Yeah, Corbin, man, I'm glad to be here. I've read and seen a lot of good things about you.
All right, and I was about to say when you say that, man, hey, just be careful. So I don't know if it's always been good. I don't know if it's always been positive. But yeah, I know my names gets out there a lot. Brother, the book 12 Seconds in the Dark, is it available at Amazon.com?
It is. That's the best place to get it because that's where it's on discount right now.
Okay.
But if you're out and about and you need it right away, you can get it at Barnes & Noble or Books A Million. Okay.
All right. And do you have a website where people could sort of get it from there, or?
No, we don't have it available on the website.
Okay.
So the best way to get it is just through Amazon. You can get it through any retailer online that sells books, Target, Walmart, any of those. But in my opinion, if you want the cheapest route, I think Amazon's the way to go.
Amazon.com. Amazon.com is where we can get 12 Seconds in the Dark by John Mattingly. Please, folks, go there and check it out. Brother, let me just talk a little bit about your background. When did you become an LMPD? When did you join LMPD?
In June of 2000. So I was on about 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Seen a lot during that 21 years.
I'm shocked because I'm like, when did you join? Were you like 10, 9?
Actually, it was a blessing. I didn't come on until I was 27. So it gave me time to mature as a human being and as an adult. And I think that's pretty important. I personally, I wish the starting age of police was pushed back a little bit because 21 is kind of young, but 27 when I came on. Yeah, I'm 50 now, so.
Okay, so you must be eating right or something, brother. You're looking good. All right.
Trying to live right.
And so were you ever in the military, anything like that?
No. I always just wanted to be a police officer. And, I raised a family and had 3 kids before I came on. And I knew that was my calling, my passion. And I had put it off for years and tried to go different angles and different routes. And finally I gave in and said, man, this is what I'm supposed to do. So it's what I did. Wow.
Okay. That's beautiful. So you just had that passion, that desire to protect and serve. Is that right?
Yeah. So since we're talking to, our local community, they'll understand this better. I grew up in the Portland neighborhood my entire life. Well, I was born on 41st and Market. That's where we lived till I was 4. Then we moved down to 22nd and Bank. So my entire life until I was 30 years old, even I've been a police officer 3 years and still lived in Portland. And so finally at 30 years old, I moved out and, just moved to the south end of Louisville. And so I've got the experience. I saw growing up all the hate, all the manipulation, especially by the dope dealers, man. You saw them taking advantage of kids and older adults, and I just couldn't stand it. Every time I saw something happen, just the fire in me burned so brightly. And I thought, man, I want to do something to help protect people who can't protect themselves. It's one thing to have a healthy, middle age or younger male who needs help, but it's a totally different feeling when you're able to help the elderly or the children. It just gives you just a sense of peace and like you're actually doing something to make a difference.
So that dope dealing scene is pretty serious in those areas you mentioned.
Oh yeah, man, it was huge. Because Portland, it's changed the dynamics a little bit since the scattered housing they started in Louisville back in,
Right.
man, I don't know, mid 2000s. But back then, everybody's super poor. I mean, you're seeing electrical cords getting ran from one house to the other to keep electric going. But then you saw a few houses down there that just had the swimming pools and the decks and the people, the nice cars sitting out front and the traffic going in and out. And you would sit back and go, that doesn't fit here. Something's different about this picture.
Right.
And the kids that are going in and out are all wearing the new Jordans and flashy dress and the chains and all that stuff. And what it was is these dope dealers had created their little empires, and they manipulated these kids who had nothing to come in. Hey man, we'll put a couple $100 in your pocket. We'll put new shoes on you. We'll give you whatever you want. Just run this dope for me. And I just saw them getting taken advantage of, and it changed those kids' lives forever because now most of them are in prison or dead. And so, that's the injustice that we see in the dope game. It's not as much as a free-willing adult going in saying, I want to put something in my body. Fine, do that if that's what you want to do. But don't touch our kids, just like all the transgender stuff, just like all that. If you want to do whatever you want to do as an adult, do it. But leave the kids out of it. Leave the people who can't protect themselves out of it. And that's the area of the dope game I can't stand.
Wow. And so eventually, now, when I think police officer, I'm always thinking of the guys that are in the uniform out in the street, pull me over if my blinkers aren't working or something, whatever. But eventually, did you sort of move into like the drug trafficking, anti-drug trafficking? I mean, explain that to me.
Yeah. So the first 5 years I was on a late watch platoon, which is midnight to 8 a.m. Or back then it was. Now it's different. But so I did that for 5 years, and I was always intrigued by the narcotics stuff. And that's where I aspired to be. So in 2005, I joined I put in and got selected for a flex platoon position in one of the divisions, our 4th Division, which is Smoketown, Taylorberry neighborhood, that area.
Wow.
And so I did that. I got on that, and we did 90 to 95% of the stuff we did was drug stuff, drug warrants, takeoffs, different things like that. But if robberies popped up in the area of carjackings, we were assigned to that kind of stuff as well. But the majority of the complaints that come in, the majority of the problems in our community derives from drugs. It just does. Your carjackings, your homicides, your robberies, all these things are either drug addicts or drug dealers fighting back and forth. And so that was the common core of all of our calls for service, of all of our complaints that we had in those units. So I did that until 2009 when I got promoted to sergeant. And I went back to the late watch for a year in uniform. And then 2010 to 2012, I was a district detective sergeant. So we handled everything except for business robberies and homicides. Did that for a couple of years. It was okay. I learned a lot, but it wasn't my game. I enjoyed the dope game. So when Viper started in 2012, I went to Viper in its inauguration and did that until late 2015. 3.5 years, the best time of my life, the hardest I ever worked, the most warrants we ever served. So it was a busy, proactive platoon that I honestly think made a difference, because in 2012, our homicides had started going up. And once we took over in that unit and they took the reins off of us, we seized, I think in 1 year, that unit seized over 700 guns.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, they're just everywhere. The guns are, number one, but they allowed us to do proactive police work and go after the true bad guys, not your dudes on the corner that got some weed in their pocket. We didn't mess with that. We messed with the true guys that were robbing, shooting, stealing, selling big dope, that type of stuff.
Murders?
And oh yeah. Yeah, the sergeant in the homicide unit had been in homicide for 15 years as a sergeant at that point, and his name is Troy. And we were just nabbing guys that were shooting people and murdering people within hours after these events were taking place. And it wasn't me. The guys in my platoon just understood how to use social media and manipulate these guys and find ways to bring them in. And I remember on one scene, we got in a murder suspect like 5 hours after it happened. And me and this sergeant are walking back to our cars. And he was like, man, I don't know how you do it. I've been in this unit a long time. Again, 15 years at this point. He said, we have never cleared cases so quick since I've been in this unit. than what the Viper unit's doing. And unfortunately, that became all politicized, in 2016, and that unit got switched over to Mobile Ninth. They rebranded it, and then it got dissolved because of the complaints. Because people are scared of proactive policing. They don't like the aggressive going after the real bad guys. That is the activists. Now, the people in the community loved us because the taxpayers that worked in that community or the elderly
Yes.
people, they thanked us. That, man, we're so glad to see you out here because we don't see
Yes.
enough police. They loved it. But the people who were the problems, they're always the loudest.
Yes.
And the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that's what happened because our former mayor,
Yes.
and I hope this one's different, but our former mayor, anytime anybody in, let's face it, in the urban community reached out and complained to him, he took 9 steps to jump on it, whether it was justified or not. And that's where it got us in this problem.
I'm glad you put it that way, brother. You're very diplomatic in your language, because I wouldn't have been diplomatic as you. There's no it's you see poor communities, you see the dope dealers, and these dope dealers are not heroes. They're not heroes. They're not to be glamorized. And I myself have to acknowledge, sometimes my role in glamorizing, the dope, big time dope dealers up in Harlem. The fact is, those guys, they are selling poison to people. They're selling stuff that's destroying individual lives, families, and whole community. That's just the bottom line. And like you say, it's not about the little guy in the street corner with $3 worth of weed or whatever. I mean, the major dope dealers, man. These guys who are pushing that poison and killing one another and terrorizing people, they need to be taken down. And yes, God bless you for doing that kind of work. And it does get politicized because sometimes I'm just like, come on, folks. I mean, what do you want them to do? Is Brother Mattingly supposed to go out there and say, hey guys, can we sit down and talk this out? 700 guns?
Yeah, Corbin, here's how bad it got. So when this thing got politicized, this is what happened. And I was there when it happened. So I've got firsthand accounts. I experienced it. They met with community activist leaders, right? The department did and the city did. And they agreed to not go in certain areas in police. And when they did that, we had to hand out these little cards every time we'd stop somebody to basically say, hey, if you want to complain, here it is. Here's our mission. And here's your complaint card if you'd like to. And so I remember one stop we did. It was at 35th and Broadway. And if you know anything about that area, especially the north side of Broadway at 35th, man, it was like fishing in a barrel. If we needed a gun, we'd go there because those juveniles they had AK-47s, they had Tech 9s, whatever you wanted, these kids had. And I'm talking 14 to 18 years old. And every night there's a shooting there or shots fired. We would get guns there. Well, I remember one night we're going down and we had been given these new directives of when you come down here, you can only work the north side of the street. You can't work the south side of 35th and Broadway. And I'm going, wait a minute, what? Why don't we just go where crime is? Right. If we hear shots fired, let's go there. If we hear a call for service of someone being assaulted, let's go there. Why are we boxing ourselves into these little bitty areas? And we stopped a group of guys on the south side of Broadway and got a gun off of them. Another guy had a warrant. And we got chastised for that by our boss because we were on the wrong side of the street that the department had agreed to not go on. And I'm like, well, who's controlling what parts of the city we go in and why are they controlling it? It's the bigger question. Who's got an interest in that didn't want to get exposed? So there's corruption. There is, whether people want to believe it or not, it exists. And it got to the point where we would have informants come to us and go, man, this guy, he's XYZ. He's got guns. He's got dope. Here's the house. We'd take it in. We'd try to do a warrant on him, and it would get shut down going, well, this is the word they use. He's not a convicted violent felon, so we can't do that warrant. And I'm thinking, whoa. He's obviously a felon with guns and dope, which in my opinion makes it violent because dope can kill people. But I said, just because he hasn't been convicted or caught yet, doesn't mean he's not that person, because we've gotten those where you get them, you get a gun off somebody, they run the ballistics and they come back, that gun was involved in a murder. Well, the guy didn't even have a record, but he's the one that shot the guy. So they totally hamstrung the police department, the mayor's office did during this time period. And that's when you started seeing the violence in Louisville start going back up, 2016, 2017, everything started climbing back to the ceiling.
Wow. Folks, this is the True American Podcast. I'm your host. We have with us Sergeant John Mattingly. He's the author of the book, 12 Seconds in the Dark. Go to Amazon.com and get it. Go to Amazon.com and get it. Amazon.com, 12 Seconds in the Dark. If you are truly wanting to know, get some insights on what happened with this whole Breonna Taylor tragedy, that brother was there. Brother, let me ask you we got a few minutes left here. Let me ask you a quick series of questions. Number one,
Sure.
Why was there a warrant served on Breonna Taylor's residence?
Okay, this is pretty simple. Now, we weren't involved in the case, but after the fact, we've learned a lot of things. So Jamarcus Glover was the main target of the investigation. Everybody knows that. However, he was tied to Breonna Taylor. That doesn't mean I'm not, on here to go after her character or any of that. But let's take Jamarcus Glover and put him in this apartment. The reason the police were there, his license had that address. His bank account had that address. His vehicle was registered to her address. The last time she bailed him out was at that address. And that was just 2 months prior to this. Breonna bailed him out of jail. And when they asked for his address, they gave her address as his. And his phone was registered there that he had, came back to her address. So everything pointed to that direction. They had video of him going there, coming out with packages, going in empty-handed, coming out with packages, going straight to the trap house. They had her taking him down to the trap house on video. So everything tied to that. And when you do drug investigations, if you're doing a larger one, you want to try to throw the web out and get in all the resources you can as far as, okay, they usually hold their money at one spot. They hold their dope at another spot. They might have guns at another spot. And most of these guys have several girlfriends, baby mamas, all that. And they take advantage of all of them. They use them all. One might not know about the other. They might know about each other. But they definitely store stuff at mom's house, grandma's house, girlfriend's house. And so that was the whole purpose of them doing that, just to because when you do an investigation, you want to cross your T's and dot your I's. And if you miss something like that, then a defense attorney can come back in court and they use that against you. But then when you do it like they did in this case, then it's used against them as well. So it's kind of a catch-22.
So she was, sort of, I guess you might say, caught up in this web. You weren't necessarily targeting her.
No.
You're after this major dope dealer.
Correct.
And she, based on the facts you just gave, she was obviously has some sort of connection or relationship with this guy. And weren't there other raids done on other residences that night?
Yeah, there were 2 done on Madison. There was supposed to be one on Muhammad Ali, and then another one, I can't remember the address.
Okay.
Or Elliott, not Madison, I'm sorry. But the one was put off once the shots came out. They canceled the other ones. In my opinion, I wish they'd went ahead and followed through on all of them, because they didn't even execute the drug warrant on Breonna's apartment. Everybody goes, oh, there was no drugs and money found. Well, they didn't search for it. Now, our public integrity came in and did their own warrant, a separate warrant for ballistics, for blood, for all the evidence of the shooting scene. But that's different than searching for drugs in a house. You're not flipping mattresses. You're not emptying drawers. You're not going through shoe boxes. You're not looking up in attics. All these things where we look, and it's very tedious. It's very, you go through a lot of nasty stuff, but you got to go through it because they had stuff in great places. And let's not forget, Kenneth Walker was in that apartment for over 16 minutes before he surrendered. That's a lot of time to hide stuff. That's a lot of time to flush stuff. That's a lot of time to get rid of things. So we don't know what happened. We don't know what took place. And that's unfortunate. That was a mistake on the department. Many mistakes were done on the city and department side before and after the incident. We're not disputing that. We know there were some mess ups. But you've got to take each one for what they were. You can't lump them all together. Just because maybe the guy who got the warrant made a mistake doesn't mean us, the helpers that had nothing to do with it that night, that were just asked to do that warrant, that you can't put his investigation on us. We had nothing to do with it.
Okay. So when you went there, I heard that it was supposed to be it was allowed to be a no-knock warrant, but that was changed to a knock.
Correct. Yeah. So they got it as a no-knock because depending on where Glover was going to be, he was the threat for the no-knock as far as the violence and stuff. So when they realized due to the tracker on his car, ping on his phone, cameras on the place, that he was going to be down at the other location, they told us in the brief, they said he's not going to be at 3003 Springfield even though it's signed as a no knock, not going to announce. They said it's a heavyset black female. Give her extra time to come to the door, because generally we're not going to announce them for 10 seconds at the most, and then you breach a door if they don't come answer, if they don't say, "Hey, hold on, I'm coming." You always wait and listen and see. But when you don't get a response, you hit the door fairly quick. Mm-hmm. This one, we gave it a minute to come to the door, yelling, "Police search warrant." We had an argument with the neighbor upstairs because we were so loud. He came out.
Wow.
All these things took place that get brushed under the rug by the media. They refused to say I was shot. It was simply, an incident happened and then they shot Brianna. No, it wasn't just an incident. I got shot in my femoral artery and almost died. So that stuff irritates me. But that's the media, man. They're going to spin it. They're going to divide us. They're going to do all the things they can to keep that storyline going.
I want to touch upon that in a minute. So, but when you knocked, you announced, hey, gave it extra time. Taking her into consideration, given her situation, just give her extra time. No response. You go in. Did you go in through the door shooting?
No. So when the door's breached, it swung from right to left. I was standing on the left side of the door. Mm-hmm. I could see the living room. So as we're yelling, we're all yelling, "Police search warrant, police search warrant." So for Kenneth to say he didn't hear us at that point, fine. We can't prove he didn't hear us while he was in the bedroom down the hall. But once the door's open and we're all yelling, "Police search warrant," we've got our lights on our guns, and I can clear the right side of the living room before I even get in the door frame. Nobody's in that what's called a fatal funnel, that door area. Nobody likes being there. So while we're yelling, "Police search warrant," I can see to the right and see the whole living room. Well, as soon as I step into the door frame just to see down the hall, Kenneth Walker's already standing there with his arm extended. Him and Brianna are so close, they're overlapping. It's like, because it's a very narrow hall. It's like 3-foot hall. Neither of them are small individuals. So they're standing there basically overlapping one another. And as soon as I show my body in that doorway as a silhouette, he fires down the hall and hits me. And that's when I returned fire. He dove out of the way into a room. Brianna attempted to follow him because in the photos, her feet are already past the hallway into where he had jumped into the next room. So she ran into the bullets and then fell backwards.
Wow. So you go in there, he shoots you, he almost kills you, and people are criticizing you for shooting back in self-defense?
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to make sense of. I don't know the answer.
And then on top of that, she's like, you're saying he's got his gun. He's like, I'm going to unload here, but she's like right there beside him. It didn't seem like he said, "Hey, baby, get away," or "Let me cover you." He just started shooting.
Yeah. So, you had a minute to come to the door. You heard us banging. You got up. You got dressed. You got your gun. You stood in the hall. If you really thought you were getting home invaded, why wouldn't you tell her to stay in the bedroom and call 911? That makes no sense to me. There were 3 phones in the house, one on him, one on her, one on the bed, on the nightstand. They only downloaded 2 of the phones. The FBI has the third one, won't release what's on it, won't release what calls were made to or from it. Because on scene, Kenneth Walker's mom shows up and talks to an officer on scene that she knows that went to school with Kenneth, that they're still buddies, that supports Kenneth. And in his statement before this whole narrative got spun out of control, she told him on scene, and he recorded it in a PIU investigation, telling the truth, that he said, Kenneth called and said they're at the door. She said, "Who's at the door, baby?" He responded with, "It's the police. I got to go," and hung up. Well, when did that call take place? Nobody knows, because they won't be transparent about it. The FBI won't. And so then when she gets shot, again, you don't call 911 for 6 minutes. You call your mom first. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
We're going to have to go to another, because I'm getting ticked off. This is absolutely insane. Folks, this is the True American Podcast. I'm speaking with John Mattingly, the author of 12 Seconds in the Dark. Buy his book. Get his book. It's at Amazon.com. Read this for yourselves, because I'm going to tell you, folks, I'm not going to say anything more about it, because this is ridiculous. And you had mentioned something before, and I know you've mentioned this in the past, the celebrities that got involved in their comments.
Yeah.
Say something about that, brother.
Well, you had not just celebrities, politicians, musicians, everybody, athletes, and a couple of the big ones. Oprah bought the signs in the city, 26 of them. Yeah, so she got on there and said, we killed her in her sleep and all these crazy stuff. We were at the wrong address. LeBron got on there and said, I mean, his statement that I've got on video says the police weren't even at the right house. They had the wrong house they went in, and they did what police always do. They just kicked the door in and started shooting. And I'm thinking, that's what police do. I mean, I've never heard of that. And we were at the right house. And, Kamala Harris said the same thing. She got 58 senators and congressmen to sign a letter saying we should go to prison. We should lose our jobs. The investigation should take place. So there was no due process here in the minds of all these people. It was simply white cop, black victim.
There you go.
They're guilty, period.
Right. And that's another thing that now hey brother, I was in Atlanta with my wife, and she said, what did she say to me? She said, her name wasn't even on the warrant. I said, yes, it was, baby. Now I'm trying to avoid a marital dispute here, man. So I'm gonna have to apologize for not being more vigorous in defending you. But I said, no, that's not true, baby. And then she said something about it was the wrong house. I said, no, baby, it's not true. That's not.
Yeah, well, that was all Ben Crump putting that out at the beginning, and that guy can say anything he wants and gets away with it. And it's unfortunate for the American people that he's able to do this.
Well, speaking of Crump saying stuff and getting away with it, has any of these celebrities, any of these musicians step forward and say, "Hey, man, we got more information. We said something that was wrong. We apologize." Anything like that?
I hope that question was in jest, because that didn't happen. No, most of them still double down on it.
But thank God you decided. Thank God you decided to do this book so that people can know, what the facts, basically the facts of what went down. Because I remember I heard an interview where you even said, man, it's unfortunate that Breonna got that shot.
Oh, it's horrible. I do see her as a victim in this. People think, oh, he's profiting off her death. He's this and that. No, I just want to get the truth out. I'll give people books. I don't care. I just want people to read it, pass it along, give it to a neighbor, friend, whatever, especially in the city of Louisville, because they need to know who's pulling the strings and the manipulation that's happening behind it that's affecting them. And so I think Breonna's a victim in all this, because you see it in the drug culture, what I was talking about earlier. Yes. Here, her dad was in prison. I've been told her mom didn't raise her. Her grandma did. Then when her grandma passed, I guess her mom kind of stepped back into her life. And these dope dealers, they see that, and they take advantage of these women. They see a girl that's looking for either a father figure or someone just to love them and to give them that affirmation, and they take advantage of them. And, oh, baby, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll provide for you, I'll love you, while they've got 4 other ones on the same hook. Right. And so I think that was the case here. I think she was somewhat manipulated. Now, she was a grown adult. She could choose for herself. But, man, I mean, some people are they're brought up behind the 8 ball. I see that. I saw it my whole life. So I understand her position. Right. Doesn't make it right, but I understand it. And I wish other people would see that as well and just say, Glover is the one to blame for this, ultimately. Yes. But then, Kenneth Walker did something stupid that night by shooting. But when it comes down to it, I think she was a victim. And I wish she was still here. Yeah.
Brother, we're going to conclude it with that, and I'm so glad that we were able to get together, and I really hope that people please get your book at Amazon.com, and also share this interview and other interviews of you, because I can't help but think there's just like a deliberate, conscious effort to demonize you and the other, and police in general, just to demonize them. I think some people are going to be shocked. Hey, he actually said that, oh my gosh, she's a victim and she's sorry that she died. Because they really want to bring you off as, I'm happy I shot her, or I don't care if she got shot or anything like that. No, that's not what's going on here. It's almost just a deliberate attempt to demonize someone like you and other police officers in it. And it's got to end. And the only way I think the way to fight back against it is just to get that information out there and just keep sharing that information. And brother, thank you so much for putting that story together, and thank you for the years that you've served. Now you've left LMPD. What are you doing now?
Yeah, no, I left. I even moved far away from Louisville. I love Louisville. I hate it that I had to leave. I was there my entire life. Everything in my life was revolved around Louisville. So, I hate that I was forced out, but that's life. That's the way it is. And now I'm just trying to help other police around the nation who have kind of gone through what I've gone through unjustly. And, we don't support the ones like you saw, last week in Memphis. We don't support that kind of activity, but
Right.
we do support the ones who are trying to make a difference, trying to help people, doing what they're trained to do, doing what they're asked to do. And then when they go out and do that, get just totally railroaded by their department and cities. And so we just want to make a difference, get the truth out for them as well.
Okay. Thank you, brother.
Sounds good, Corbin. All right. Thanks, Corbin.